Good afternoon. I can't hear anything. I don't know if you guys can hear me.
We can, yeah.
Oh, we can hear you now.
Yeah.
Can you hear us?
I can now.
Okay, great.
Great.
Sherry got it all fixed up then.
I still have video.
Mm,
Yeah.
You can be a phone in. There.
There we go. Now we can see and hear you. I suppose you said you were present?
He didn't hear us.
I was waiting. Yes, I'm here.
Audio, but we won't have video.
Oh,
It's not working. I can work on it during.
Okay,
yeah.
that's fine.
Okay, continuing on roll call, Councilmember Espinoza,
Present.
Councilmember Peterson,
Present.
and Councilmember Boyle,
Present.
and Councilmember Sherman and Williams have asked to be excused. We do have a quorum.
All right, thank you so much. Will you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. It's time for public comment. Sherry, did anyone submit a comment in advance?
I did not receive any comments and there is no one in the attendees list.
All right, and we have no one in the council chamber, so then we're going to move on to the workshop topics. There's 4 topics on the agenda for tonight. The first one is fiscal year 2024 summer youth program proposal, and Mr. Rizzatello will present on that.
Okay, thank you. So ever since 2017, when Wawa University had students go door to door surveying residents and needs, one of the 2 needs was the need for youth childcare, especially in the summer. The other was the library. Now we're in the library district, and with the childcare component, we've always partnered with United Way, where they provide us matching funds to help buy down summer program for when school is out of session. So the history of this is, for the first couple of years, Campfire was the provider, because they were willing to provide the summer rec program. Then we went through COVID, and though they had some internal issues, let's just say. And then from that juncture, it was bid out to the YMCA. They provided services last summer, and it was fully subscribed out. This year, to make sure that we were getting the best proposal, we solicited proposals from any organization interested in providing said services. And then we had due dates and everything else. We received one proposal back. It was from the YMCA, and it's essentially to provide the childcare over in Kiwanis Park for the summer. And you can see they have a boilerplate, especially on page 8. You can see of how they're trying to work in tandem with the 21st Century program that the public schools that they run. They have a staffing plan and then a programmatic plan. So this was the only proposal that we received in order so they can staff up appropriately, because they do have to hire the necessary staff and also supplies and equipment and such. We really need to get on this. So the Park Arbor and Recreation Board, they reviewed said proposal, and it was unanimously recommended for approval out of the PAR board the last meeting, and thus it is in front of you. I just want to put it in front of you in case there's any other additional information I need to get from the Y, if we're so inclined. But otherwise, this will be going for approval at the next meeting, so we can allow them enough time to do the hiring and the supplies and such. So they'll be ready to promote this and be ready to go as we get into the summer. Questions?
Okay, Councilmember Jessup?
Is this the same program last year where we had like a couple of people, like the College Place, receive some funds, or is this something different?
And there's some differences there.
Oh, okay.
So to go back to that, so if you rewind the clock back at 2021, the state of Washington was sitting on a boatload of ARPA money that year, and they made this this one-time grant program called SEEK funding, and College Place Public Schools got a ton of money. So did Campfire, and then so did Sunbridge. So all three, and we acted as the conduit. They had the sub-recipients. In fact, that 1 year, from the 3 grants where we administered and were able to do the sub-recipient agreements, it totaled about $240,000 that year. But after that year, it never came back. So we're going back to, I would say, our traditional program, which is that we give 10,000, United Way matches us, and then the provider figures out the budget to buy down the cost and make a go at it. Because the big issue before this is that there were programs put on essentially within the Seventh-day Adventist churches, and then over in the city of Walla Walla. But then beyond that, there was not really anything going on. So that was to fill that gap.
Is this having one respond, and it seems the same process the last 3 years. I'm just wondering why there was one response. Is it just indicative of the valley? Just like you just mentioned, the churches are doing stuff, the Walla Walla Parks and Recs are doing things. It's just the only one left in the valley is like United Way and YMCA, or does that make sense?
Yeah, you could.
So there's always been historically in the Valley, as far as summer programming goes, there has always been a Campfire program. There's been a YMCA program. And as far as public programs, those have been the 2 primaries. The city of Walla Walla also has their own summer program that is cost free, but it's not an educational program. There's not a check-in, check-out. It's your kids can basically come and go. So Campfire and the Y have been the 2 primary summer programming partners to the community. With a lot of the changes that Campfire has had in the last few years, last year, their board chose to really restructure and focus how they were doing some of their programming. And their new ED was really looking at where they wanted to kind of focus their new structure so they could kind of rebuild, if you would. And so that has kind of left the Y as the primary open partner.
No, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, and just to double down, Campfire's done a severe restructuring, so I think it's going to be some time before you see them come back to have enough capacity to do this. And then the only other one that verbally showed some interest, but they don't really have a defined program yet, so I think you're going to have to see some time before they even have anything to bid on, would be like the Friends of Children, but they didn't have anything put together yet.
Councilmember Cleveland?
This is really great. And it looks like, looking over the proposed expense, about $50,000, pretty affordable for what's offering. And over 50 kids, it looks like, is the max.
Yeah.
Is it just like first come, first served? Beyond that, it's like, should have signed up earlier?
Yeah, and it's prioritized to College Place residents, so there is a priority set there.
Oh, okay.
So,
how many people did we get last year? Or is that not quite comparable because we had different funding?
No, last year was the same funding, and we did have identical numbers last year, and we did in fact have a wait list near the end, so it does get subscribed quite a bit.
Is it possible could we find funding to expand it a little bit if it's that popular, or
potentially we could. I would just caution for this year because as it was, we were really pushing the calendar date by which the Y needed to have the information to do the staffing and so forth. So if I
Okay.
came in at the 11th hour and be like, guess what? That's not gonna go over well.
Well, we gotta
So,
be nice to them. if they're
Yeah.
giving us this, so.
The,
Thank you,
the
Mike.
state's staffing requirements for these kinds of programs are really, really, strict. And so they have the Y works really, really hard to make sure that all of their camp counselors and their staffing are really, really quality people that are working with the kids and trying to find enough to fully staff for 50 kids here and for their full Y program over in Walla Walla as well can be quite the struggle since it's just seasonal and they try to make sure that everybody's over the age of 18. So with some of the conditions that they put on their staffing, it does get tricky to make sure they can be fully staffed. So 50 is about all that they can do unless they know a year in advance that they're going to need to build that.
Councilmember Espinosa?
Just a comment, I think it's really great that our city continues to look for ways to provide recreation offerings for our kids in the summer. So I think it's a really good thing for us as a community.
Councilmember Peterson?
I think my question was just answered, but so this is on our land and it's supervised
Yes.
by us, but obviously entities like the YMCA, the staff there are all doing state patrol background checks.
yeah.
That's pretty tight.
Oh, yeah.
As far,
Yeah.
I mean,
And I can attest to it because for full disclosure, I believe I put in materials, but full disclosure, I'm on the Y board now, so.
no, I always,
So-
when these things kind of
Yeah.
happen in the summer like this, I'm just, there's, I mean, there is a structure here,
Yeah,
obviously.
there is.
And so that's reassuring that these background checks are being done.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
I just want to quickly say that I did meet with Campfire's ED a few weeks back ago, just to kind of catch up on where Campfire is in their process. And they opted that they weren't even going to try this year because they know that they're in that position of not ready to even put on a quality program, staffing wise, program wise, funding wise. So they purposely set out this time around again. He's hoping to have a strong program for next year, but it was just smart not to even try this year. Councilmember Boyle.
So my only question is last year, so she does note in her bid, if you would, that due to minimum wage
Yeah.
increases and food increases and all of those things. So last year's rates were, I think, $45 a week per kid.
Yeah.
For the full week, for
Mhm.
full days.
Yeah.
And this year they're jumping up to $100 a week for the full day weeks. Is there conversation in place of how, or if there's opportunity for some of the families that need scholarships to have those taken care of? Because that was, okay,
There is. In fact, they've written a grant to help underwrite all of that,
Great.
so
okay,
there will be aid for those that need it.
okay. I just know that
Yeah.
in the past, historically, the program was to make sure that those dollars stayed low. And $100 a week is still an incredible deal if for anybody who hasn't looked at childcare costs recently, that is a steal of a deal. But I know that historically it was considerably lower, so.
They essentially are in the end stages of getting a grant to help cover that. I will say, as an organization, their budget is extremely tight this year because that whole minimum wage jump, and then they now also, knock on wood, we won't have to deal with this for a while, but they do. They had that Clean Buildings Act that was passed by the state of Washington. That's dramatically hammering them. So it's like any building above like 20,000 square feet. And since they have a pool, they get hit and you have to pay all sorts of penalties and do all this like remediation work. And it's like in the millions of dollars, which for a nonprofit's extremely painful. So I can attest that they're trying to do this as much on a shoestring as possible.
Karen's great.
Yeah.
Never ending unintended consequences.
Yeah,
Mike, and just kind of connected with what Monica's talking about. If prices are, and I understand the need
Yeah.
to raise the prices, I completely do.
yeah,
But I would propose that we consider putting in our RFPs, maybe in future years, that at least a percentage of of children need to be either, scholarship or of a different fee. Because
Yeah.
I'd really like to make sure that we keep a diverse group
Yeah.
of families involved in these summer camps.
well, and keep in mind too, one of the items beyond other grants that they're getting that's gonna help provide some of the scholarships is they did put in a scholarship proposal to the community grant program that we also administer. And if you all remember from when I went over that at the last council meeting, that was ranked as like the top one by the ad hoc committee. So it's happening, but yeah, I do agree we need to put additional language in the RFP.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, we're gonna move on then. Let's go to the fiscal year 2024 Community Outdoor Athletic Facilities Grant Program ideas.
Hey, thank you. So I'm trying to just get the temperature of the room of which one to go after, or if we go after both. So essentially, the state has a new grant program. It may go into the future, but at least as of right now, it's one time. It's a community athletic facilities grant. It's funded from impact fees the Climate Pledge Arena have to pay. And then also Amazon and others are having to pay into it as well. And they've essentially opened it up to be funding park development activities for youth into communities. And you can essentially put in for grants, basically up to 1.2 million. Per the grant guidelines, you don't really need to have a match, although you'll notice in the renditions I put in here, I do have one, because just knowing how they scored in other grant programs, you lose a ton of points if you don't do that. I imagine this is going to be heavily subscribed. The nice thing with this program too is that you have up until 2027 if it's awarded to do the park projects, and you could even get extensions for a year or two past that. So the two projects that we're percolating is to fix up the north half of Kiwanis Park. A couple of years ago, we did the south half with the pickleball field, but the sprinklers on the north half have issues. Also, the roof on the picnic shelter. In our park plan that was adopted by city council, it talked about like a walking path around the perimeter of the park, and then potentially putting lighting around the pickleball court, because we've talked about that in past meetings. The folks go over there, especially in spring and fall, with their own lighting when it's darker out, and that causes issues with the neighbors. So having better lighting would help. So you'll see the estimate there if we were to do the Kiwanis Park one would basically be about $1 million with a proposal of 900,000 grant requests and 100,000 city match, because that REIT 2 money we collect, that builds anywhere from $200,000 to $400,000 a year, depending upon the real estate market. And we've in general earmarked that for parks. And once Lions Park is finally done, it's going to be collecting money again. I mean, we're using what's in there now for Lions Park, but that's going to be done, and then it'll be building again. The second thing that's in here is the Whitman and Maple site. And you may wonder why we narrowed down these two projects. It's because it has to be in the existing park plan, and because our park plan's getting near the end of its useful life, you're pretty narrowed down. So Kiwanis Park and then Whitman and Maple, luckily there was vague language in there about a park near Whitman and Maple, so it provided some cover for us. We can't put in for Perseverance or Autumn Meadows because isn't really super themed for the youth population. You may remember when we went over the schematics, it was mainly for the neighborhood, but it wasn't really a youth-centric park. Whitman and Maple, just again, bring back the design on that. You would see it has that bike pump track, pickleball, and then a playground complex. Estimated cost there would be 1.9 million, and put in for the 1.2 for RCO with a 700,000 match. So I just wanted to get opinions on, do we put in for both, or do you favor one over the other, or what the general consensus is? At the last park board meeting, they made a motion to try to go after both of them, since there is, if somehow we did get both, you would have multiple years to do it. Isn't like we'd be in a cash crunch. So that was the motion that they made, to recommend city council going after both of them. But the time frame to put this in is for mid this month, so I need consensus on that. So yeah.
I think you're giving yourself a lot of time to do it, Mike.
Yeah.
Councilmember Jessup.
Do you know traditionally if these REIT programs like this typically award to parks that exist or future park planning? Is that even known?
So with this program, we really don't know, because it's brand new.
Yeah, so there's no.
There's
indications?
nothing to go back on, because this is brand new impact fee money.
So it just, you would think, with so many people, hopefully, really going after it. If you put in both, it lessens your chances of getting either one.
True.
So if that be the case, obviously I don't know.
Yeah.
But if that be the case, it seems my 2 cents is that Kiwanis Park would be really kind of a priority in the sense of how much it's used, how much the community's invested in it already. Maybe there's a side benefit knowing that we're going to be renovating Lions Park. And so Kiwanis is going to be used more and more heavy traffic with potential farmers market and such.
Yeah.
Might get a win-win out of it. And I know it's often used oftentimes for the Parks and Rec Soccer League. And I know it's one that a lot of those neighborhoods use on this side of Myra versus being able to cross Myra. So my first thought was obviously go for both, but if it's one of those situations where going for both actually lessens your chance of either one, my 2 cents would be, for those reasons, probably Kiwanis Park.
Okay.
Councilmember Cleveland.
I don't have any particularly strong thoughts on this. I like the idea of going after both, but if it does lessen our chances, do we even know that?
We don't know for sure. It's and as I told Park Board, it's a gut instinct, just because it's a brand new program, and this is usually with RCO programs, they require a match. This doesn't even require a match. So for anyone that watches this thing, I think you're going to see everyone pile in. So just knowing that, I imagine they're going to be trying to figure out ways to narrow down the pool, one would think, but we don't know for sure because this is brand new.
Is it a program we can apply to next year as well, like an ongoing thing, or is this like we have the funds, apply, and then it's over?
That's how they've portrayed it right now. They've made comments that as you have future large scale development, like in Metro Seattle, like those rec complexes, that they would be putting the impact fee money into this for future years. But that requires like state, House and Senate action and governor action. So who knows? So for now, we have to operate under the auspices that it's one and done.
Does it tend to be easier to get funds for creating a new park or kind of fixing up your existing park, or is not really any difference?
There really is any difference. It's about, does the application have everything in it or not?
Okay. Well, like I said, I don't have any particularly strong feelings, but whatever gets us the funding for whatever. So thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
Councilmember Espinosa.
Yes, from, looking at both the cost of both parks, I think from an economical perspective, it would make more sense to go after Kiwanis because the city would need to match less than in Whitman, and from a financial perspective. And also, I think that the level of use from Kiwanis is higher. So I think the people would be using that park more, and it would just add to the wonderful park that's already there, will make it a lot more enticing for people to use, and it's going to improve upon the infrastructure that's there. So I think I would vote for the Kiwanis Park renovation in this instance.
Okay.
Councilmember Peterson?
Mike, the retrofitting or the improvements to Kiwanis for the farmers market, what's the timing on, of this, and could that be applied to those funds?
No, that's two separate things. So the whole electrical issue, that's actually part of the Lions Park contract, since Lions Park basically kicked out the farmers market this year.
Okay.
So the electrical work is getting done this month through very early May. Under an express order, get out of there in time for spring fling and the youth program and
Okay.
the farmers
Yeah.
market. So yeah.
No way to cross them, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think great statements, I support whatever the larger group, yeah. But
Councilmember Boyle?
I don't have a strong feeling either way as far as one or the other. I do agree that with the higher use the Kiwanis gets, if we're
Yeah.
picking one, that's probably the better option. And knowing how a lot of these grants go, I'd also kind of echo your guess
Yeah.
that submitting two is gonna, I mean, on one hand, it doubles your chances that maybe they'll pick one, but it also, if you're really pushing for one in particular, you potentially risk not getting funded for that one.
Yeah.
I second everything everybody said. Yeah, I think we should improve the park that we already have
Okay.
over leaving it with some deficits and putting in a brand new park elsewhere.
Yeah.
Especially that it's used so much. I agree with the others, and I, same thing. I feel like if putting two in is gonna make it look bad or risk us getting neither, we probably should focus on making a really strong application for Kiwanis.
Yep.
Just my 2 cents. Any other comments or questions? Thank you for doing this, Mike. I know it's just another thing that you didn't intend to do, but you always bring things to us, so thank you. Okay, next is the fiscal year 2024 update on the state legislative agenda.
Okay, so they are still in session through the end of the week. However, two interesting pieces of information came out this afternoon. There is and you got an email about this probably about an hour ago, but in the unified community project budget that came out, they ended up giving $2.5 million toward the community center replacement at Lions Park, which is pretty that's pretty shocking in a supplemental year where they aren't doing a full budget. So we have a $2.5 million earmark, and it's agreed upon by both houses. So that means it's in. And then the second one, which really surprised me, is you may remember from a couple years ago when we did that whole McKinstry project, that they were proposing to change out a lot of our HVAC units at the fire station because all that's at the end of its useful life. And through their carbon emissions program, we actually got a grant with a zero match to pay for the whole thing. And that's in the capital budget too. So it looks like we're completely good to go on both of those. So that's pretty cool that we have those two earmarks, but it's in the final budget. So
that gave me goosebumps. I'm excited about that.
Yeah. So that's some great news, earmark wise. As far as initiative wise, there is bills that passed out of both the legislature to put the whole concept of the police pursuits to a vote of the people. So you're going to see that come November, and then also some voting initiatives around like the whole Climate Commitment Act They referred that to the ballot as well. And then also, it was the climate commitment dollar money that they ended up putting to a vote of the people, and then stuff around the whole income capital gains tax too. So, and that just passed like yesterday. So they'll be on for the voters to decide. And then as far as some bills, luckily, since it was a smaller session, there were some crazy ones that came out this year, but luckily a lot of them got swatted down. One that I was a bit irritated about was House Bill 2354, which had to do with tax increment financing districts, because I'll just say some other agencies in the state were taking a unique definition of what TIFs were, and there was groups that were trying to run legislation that would essentially make TIF where you couldn't use it anymore. So luckily, a lot of that language got removed, and they put in some like safeguards for future TIFs. But luckily, we end up unscathed from it, which is great news because I testified against that because that would have been really, really bad. And then the other big one is that House Bill 2428. So that's the whole sales tax sharing thing. That passed unanimously out of the House and the Senate. So got delivered to the governor's desk, and they're probably going to have a bill signing ceremony, so I'll let y'all know when they'll be, but they'll be in Olympia at a future date. But he indicated he'll sign it, so that means that we'll be able to have that discussion with City of Walla Walla and get the show on the road with that. Other things is with the basic law enforcement, the cost share on that. There's some hot topics around that lately. So Amazon offered to essentially pay to cover the difference between like the cost to send officers in, and then that the local communities were having to pay for, because for a lot of smaller communities, that's a major cost that they can't really pay for. And for whatever reason, there's a lot of back and forth going on, but certain powers that be in the House caucuses voted to not accept the Amazon money for some reason. So there's a lot of back and forth about how do you cover that local share so it doesn't keep growing. Because when I moved to the state a decade ago, I remember when I was in Colfax, the local training cost for an officer used to be like $500 that a city would have to pay for, and it's like now closing up around like $7,500. So to have it jump that much in a decade's pretty insane. But yeah, I'll just say there was some very bizarre behavior around like not accepting the Amazon stuff, and then some other legislators that get back at the people who like voted that down end up pulling other bills to get back at them, although none of the other bills affected us. So that's a whole nother sidebar. But yeah, that's what's going on in Olympia at the moment. Yeah, I know.
Councilmember Jessup, questions or comments?
Just to continue on a theme of a hornet's nest, did I hear you say, forgive me if I missed it, that the sales tax sharing thing means we get to open back up with our friends at Walla Walla and have some more discussions?
Yes, yes, because what was alleged by City of Walla Walla was that there were RCWs that precluded us from having these negotiations. This bill that we ran essentially satisfied City Attorney Donaldson over there so that we can all do that. And I would say the same time that we're going to be entering these discussions, there's identical discussions now going on between Aberdeen, Hoquiam, Lacey, Olympia, Tumwater, and Wenatchee and East Wenatchee. So it's a larger level trend.
Were we the first ones to approach it?
Yeah.
How about that? We're trendsetters.
Yeah.
Councilmember Cleveland?
I don't think I have any questions, but really appreciate the update, the summary, and just being in the know about everything going on. And it sounds like we got some really great stuff going on due to your work and their staff work, and just really appreciate it.
Yep.
Councilmember Espinosa?
The Bible says, ask and you shall receive, and I'm just excited about the capital projects that are gearing up to come our way. I think they would really benefit our community to have both of those projects come. So hopefully they will wrap up and come our way. I think it'll be really great for years to come and for many more generations to enjoy what they're going to do for our community.
Councilmember Peterson?
No questions. Good job. Thanks.
Councilmember Boyle?
No questions. Thanks, Mike.
Mike, do we owe an appreciation to Representative Clicker and Senator Dozier for
Yeah.
helping us get those two
Yeah.
through? Okay, so if you'll have some time, maybe send them a little,
I did call his office and said, thank you,
which office?
Clicker's office.
Clicker's office,
On
okay.
behalf of the city. I
Yeah,
hope that was okay.
oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, in the House budget, Representative Clicker fought for us to get those 2 earmarks and initially it didn't show up in the Senate proposal, but then we got on the phone with Senator Dozier's office and luckily they were able to push it through.
Yes, so we are very grateful for their time and
Yeah.
for giving Little College Place some added boost in attention. They did good bat for us, so we appreciate
Yep.
that. Any other questions or comments? Okay, last on the agenda is coordinating development efforts with Valley Transit. Ms. Caldwell.
Yes, I am presenting this, probably because it's on a very, first step level here. Basically, I think what has happened is Valley Transit, I think everyone's familiar with Valley Transit. It's a, municipality. They run the public transportation within the county. And the city has been developing, probably more so than in the past as far as constructing roads and commercial development, things like that. And the thought is, if we have something that we have planned on our roads, or if we have a private development and that's going to impact a bus stop or a potential bus stop, that we will work with Valley Transit to kind of coordinate that effort. And also I think the hope is that as we plan for years down the road, things that we're going to work on, Valley Transit can plan as well and vice versa. Rather than it being kind of a last minute thing, do you want to come in and help us with this or coordinate? So we don't have anything in writing at this point. We're working with Robert McAndrews, our public works director, to make sure that we understand the roles, and that's basically where we're at. So any questions or concerns that you might have?
Yeah, sounds like it's really in the early phases, but Councilmember Jessup, questions or comments?
No, but just like what I said last time, anytime that we can ever get ahead of things as far as possible and communicate clearly and be transparent and get ahead, I truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilmember Cleveland?
No questions, and I'll echo Paul.
Councilmember Espinosa?
No questions.
Councilmember Peterson?
No questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Boyle?
No questions. Great idea.
We made that a little too
I
easy
know.
for her. Okay.
Just remember, we'll be coming back with more details.
All right, so that's all that was on our discussion for our workshop topics. We're now to closing items, but before I do ask if there's any other business for good of the order, I did want to share that last Thursday, Friday, it just seems like a whirlwind. Mike and I were in DC. And meeting with our legislators, their aides, really. And trying to really advocate for federal funding appropriations for College Place. And I just wanted to share that we had a great experience at all three offices of Murray, McMorris Rogers, and Cantwell.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, we were welcomed and they were just great experiences. John, our lobbyist, feels that Mike did some excellent presentations and that everything went very well. He didn't feel like anything could have been stronger. And I do want to note that at all three meetings, the staff mentioned how well organized we were. And, while I sat there and said, thank you, really, it was this gentleman over here that took care of it all. The flyers he handed out with all the information they need and looking for made it really easy for them to be able to keep track. So they commented quite often about how well organized information, how well the information was laid out for them. But Mike, anything else you wanted to share about that?
I would just say, I think we're sitting pretty good on a lot of those requests. So you all passed the prioritization the last council meeting. I definitely think with the reservoir, we're probably gonna see a earmark come through for that. Especially because in the Water Resources Development Act that's moving forward this year, which is the Army Corps authorization, the national one, it actually ended up in it. So it ended up like in the federal authorization. So typically that's a precursor to getting one of those like funding mechanisms for that. The community center, I think that there was a lot of interest in that. And also the other thing that was, there was a surprising amount of interest just because we haven't really done much with it yet, is 12th Street. A lot of interest there. And then I think we've started to lay the foundation around discussions around like the whole police station project. But definitely the top three I felt were, which are ready for prime time. They seem to be very on board with.
Yeah, they were also impressed at the creativeness and of the multi-use of our community center to benefit our community and our citizens in different ways. They were quite impressed with those proposals as well. That it just wasn't one large gym, right? That's not what we were just doing. So we felt really good about that. It was a worthwhile trip and it was exhausting, but it was a good one.
Yeah.
Mike and I had the unfortunate luck of both ways sitting in a middle seat.
Yeah.
It was not fun.
It was horrible.
It was horrible. It was.
That's a long flight too to get over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, exactly.
Yeah.
It was bad. All right. So does anyone else have any other business for good of the order? Councilmember Peterson.
I would like, I know it's been on the radar and I know you guys are probably bouncing off requests and whatnot, but I need to bring up the speed controls on Bade Street.
Okay.
I know there's been some communication, I think that's gone out that, from some of the people. And I think personally right now, I'm having a little bit of a credibility issue with some of the citizens.
Oh.
They'll come to me. I live on Bade Street as I think we all know, perhaps, or maybe not, but it's interesting when you're a council member, people will come up to you and you'll say, yeah, I'll look into that and I'll talk to people. And then about the third time that happens over a 6-month span, there's a little bit of there's an issue there, I would say. And I know there's some suggestions of, speed bumps or, whatever, but I'm not sure. I think we need to address this. I do believe, I'm not sure what the speed limit is I think there's some signs there, but there aren't many. I think also with the changes on College Avenue, as was brought out, that it has redirected some traffic there. And it's not constant. I don't want to make more out of this than it is, but my estimates are sometimes there are people reaching speeds of 40, 50 miles an hour, going down Bade, heading towards the college, University Church, and it's, there's kids, there's young children there, and there's all the rest of it. And it's one of these things where I think the frustration level is reaching a point with some people on that street that I do worry about confrontation and with some of these drivers and whatnot. So I don't know what that, we did talk about some of the stuff from the 1880s on Boyer in Seattle, where you do those, not a roundabout, but a center, or if it is just a case of more patrols or whatever. But anyway, I just wanted, I feel like I am losing credibility right now. So, yeah.
Okay, well, what I would say for it, what we can do immediately is I'll tell the chief to be doing additional patrols. I can ask Robert to put up additional speed limit signs over there. Now, to do some more permanent, and I can't have
Yeah.
JUB do it, what we're gonna need to do so we just don't end up in a lawsuit eventually is we need JUB to do one of those engineering memos with the stamp that says what to do. Because if we go and put a little circle thing or a bump and then someone breaks a wheel, we'll end up paying for it and then some, so.
Well, Mike, I think it's really important that at least we get a message
Yeah.
going now and enforcement,
Yeah.
like whether it's the signs, whether it's a speed limit, that thing that flashes what
Yeah.
limits are going, or even putting or putting out those speed measure
Yeah,
lines, whatever they're
Yeah,
called.
oh yeah, the traffic counters.
They're, at least putting them
Yeah.
along the street would
Yeah.
really, I think, would at least show that action is being taken and they're being listened to.
Yeah,
And I would just add one thing really quickly. What's interesting about Bade Street is I was talking to one of the individuals. There really is not a parallel in College Place. There isn't a parallel street to 12th Street. There isn't a, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where I can get off 12th Street
Yeah.
and go 100 miles,
yeah,
there isn't a parallel to 4th Street. But there is a parallel to Main Street.
Yeah.
In College Place, and it's Bade.
Yeah.
And so it is unique in that respect, in that it's like I can get from point A to
Yeah.
point B. Whereas there aren't, most of our other main streets, you're gonna have to stop at stop signs every block or something like that, but.
yeah,
Ms. Colwell?
I was just gonna say that, but we could do a formal, enforcement.
Yeah.
Heightened enforcement. We can do a press release saying, we're enforcing the speed limit special this particular time and date. And I mean, that could be something we could
Yep.
randomly repeat. That tends to slow people down.
Yeah.
a bit.
I think that's the
At
goal,
least the
right?
first step,
Yeah.
maybe that would be.
So
Yeah,
let's,
no, I think, agree. Thank you.
so let's do that as the first step. And then I do think there needs to be other countermeasures there, but and I mean, if we get the memo done in time, there is actually like state money to go pay for more substantial stuff, but we need like a stamp memo. Otherwise, if someone hits that the wrong way, we're done.
yeah, I'm
So-
sure we all understand that.
Yeah, I was just.
Councilmember Cleveland?
You mentioned the idea of like putting that, is it that trailer that measures how fast you're going?
Yeah.
What is the cost of getting one of those ones that's permanent, that would, you'd put in the ground, that would just constantly tell you like what your speed is, like we have on College Avenue up coming to the school?
Yeah.
Cause that could be a good investment, cause when people feel like they are noticed, even if, this doesn't get forwarded necessarily, I think that would tend to slow people down a lot too.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I can look, see if we could pull funds for that. The one that tells you the speed limit, each one of those, believe it or not, it's like 20,000.
Well, let's see what we
believe it.
can do.
Yeah.
Because
Out there.
I agree, a lot of people don't even realize how fast they're going until they see that. Councilmember Jessup?
I don't know the what it is for universities, but obviously for school districts, like public school districts, there's a speed limit change
Yeah.
in certain hours. Is that the same case for universities at all? Like when students are present, because it's a lot of walking?
Not for universities. It tends to only be K through 12.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other items, discussions for good of the order? All right, hearing none, I will conclude the workshop at 6:20 PM. Thank you all very much. Great discussions.
Thanks, Mike.